to hospitals, being fueled by over $170 billion. Now imagine that. The city's budget last year was $115 billion. They're being fueled by $170 billion plus. And they're terrorizing America. They're not only arresting U.S. citizens, they're killing them. They're shooting them in the face. And this action, this illegal, aggressive action is being fueled by the money. So let's take the money back. Let's unmask them. Let's make sure they respect sensitive locations. Let's make sure they don't engage in deadly force. Let's make sure that they are dismantled. Let's get rid of ICE, America. Let's get rid of it. And so today we're here with NAM, that has been at the forefront of civil rights, that has been at the forefront of defending immigrants, that has been at the forefront of defending women's rights, that has been at the forefront of pushing and lifting up those communities that have been traditionally excluded. The black community in Harlem, the Dominican community in Washington Heights, the Puerto Rican community in East Harlem, the new African community in the Northwest Bronx. Yes, the Mexican community in East Harlem, the Senegalese on 116th Street. Yeah, that's what makes up our city. And NAM is at the center of lifting everybody up so that all votes rise with the same time. God bless you. And as the great late Adam Clayton Powell used to say, keep the faith, baby.
Our New York City Comptroller, Mark Levine.
Who put me after Congressmember Espaillat in the speaking order? I don't like that person anymore. Good morning, Nan. Happy 35th anniversary. You don't look a day over 21. We need you more than ever. With a madman in the White House, in a sane world, his cabinet would have already exercised the 25th Amendment, because this is a man who is not in his right mind. I still hold out hope. We also are facing severe economic challenges, with inequality now worse than it was in the Gilded Age. And what I know about Nan and Reverend Sharpton is, while you have led in the fight for racial justice and social justice, you have been on the vanguard in fighting for economic justice. It was Reverend Sharpton and the late, great Reverend Jesse Jackson who marched on Wall Street beginning in the 90s, demanding that black entrepreneurs had a seat at the table on Wall Street that they had been denied. And that fight is ongoing, because Nan understands economic power must be fairly distributed, and it is not today. And our city government must do better. I'm proud to be partnering with you and Nan in that fight. We give out tens of billions of dollars in contracts in New York City. My office just did a study. 6%, only 6% is going to MWBEs. We must do better. And I'm in this fight with you to make sure that we do better. And I am keeping my eye on the unemployment rate in New York, which is rising and disproportionately impacting black New Yorkers. We have what MLK called a black jobs gap, with the black unemployment rate in New York more than double that for white New Yorkers at 9%. And for black young people now approaching 20%. We tell our young people, do the right thing. Go out to college, get a degree. They come back to New York. They cannot afford an apartment. They can't find a job. What is the message we're sending to young people? We must do better. And then there's the question of our pensions. How many of you have served our city or transit or our retirees? Thank you. Thank you for that service. It is my solemn obligation to protect your pension. And I promise that we will. But we also need to make sure that the people managing those funds look like New York City. We have to do better on that front. And I'm partnering with you and Reverend Sharpton and Jennifer Jones-Austin to make sure that we have much more diversity in our fund management. So we have a big agenda together. I am all in on this fight for economic justice with Nan, with Reverend Sharpton, with all of you. Happy 35th convention, everybody. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from our Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg.
Good morning, Nan. I love Saturday morning on 145th Street, but this is great. We got the whole country here, and I specifically want to thank Jennifer Jones Austin. She brokered the deal for the new house. I will be brief, and I want to just talk specifically about something that Reverend Sharpton talks all the time. Our communities require and demand both safety and fairness. You know, some people act like they can't coexist. They need each other, and Reverend Sharpton has lifted up that message now for 35 years. And a lot of what we're doing in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is based on, what we see Ashley and Dominique working with the NAN Youth Huddle, or Saturday mornings and lessons learned there. So I'm happy to report, as you gather here in the middle of Manhattan, the safest big city in America, that at the same time, over the last 4 years, working with NAN, working with other electeds, working with our community leaders, shootings are down 70% in Manhattan. And we can clap for that, because those shootings are about us. In New York City, 95% of shooting victims are black and brown. And at the same time, we have doubled our referrals to mental health and drug treatment courts. So don't tell me they can't be done at the same time. And those are lessons learned on 145th Street at NAN. I thank you. Yeah. Let's keep marching onward.
I wrote
Our Bronx District Attorney, Darcel Clark.
Thank you. Good morning, Nan. It's wonderful to be here. Before I speak, I want to give greetings from our great Attorney General, Letitia James.
She's here?
You all know Tish would be here, but the Congressional Black Caucus is holding one of their conferences today. And you know, we love Tish because she belonged to us in New York, but she belonged to the whole country. So she's going out there representing all of us, and you know she is doing the good fight against the Trump administration and everybody that feels that they can disrespect our community. So let's give it up for Letitia James and the work that she's doing. All right. Y'all gonna give her a bigger applause than me, but I'm glad I delivered that at least, right? But I'm Darcel Clark, the District Attorney of the Bronx, happy to be in my 10th year as the District Attorney. Wow. Wouldn't be here without Nan and Reverend Sharpton and those of you who were able to vote for me to make sure that I became the first woman District Attorney in the Bronx and the first black woman elected DA in the state of New York. But I won't be the last, because you know what? Nan is the one that empowers people to better themselves. And as I do this work as a district attorney in the Bronx, and my colleague Alvin Bragg talked about, you know what? The victims of the crimes and those offenders of the crime look the same in my community, in the Bronx. And we can't wait for other people to come and save us. We have to do it ourselves, and that's one lesson that we get from Nan. And as Reverend Sharpton said, we all got to come out of here with a plan and a strategy to deal with those things that are holding us back. We have been here before. We're going to get through this, but we only get through it through the work that you all do each and every day in every place that you stand in this city and this country. So I'm happy to be a part of this movement. I'm happy to have Nan there when I need to help to deal with the struggles that we have in the Bronx. D.A. Bragg, I'm happy that you said your shootings are down, but when you look at the statistics of the city, unfortunately, all the bad things that are happening, most of them are happening in the Bronx. And that's because of the disinvestment that has happened in my county for years. But you know what? I got a good partner sitting right over there called the Borough President, Vanessa Gibson. And the two of us are helping to turn that around. And one of the problems that we're dealing with, and I spoke to Councilmember Joseph, we're talking about our young people. We need more of them in these rooms right here. And I know that NAN has a Youth Action Network, and you are doing your part. Christian, I see him here. He was one of the young people that I used to have in the Bronx doing the work. And look at him now. Our young people are full of promise. We need to do better. We can't have them taking over malls in Bay Plaza like they did last time, right? But we can't keep solving the symptoms without getting to the root cause of the problem. And one of the things I did because of that, because social media was the one that helped push that out, those efforts out. And you know what we did as a community, the electeds and the business community? We sent a letter to TikTok and Snapchat and all of those platforms to say, you know what? You got to do better to know not to push that things out. And yesterday, the borough president, I, and other electeds sat down with TikTok. And guess what? We have a plan and a strategy now going forward. That's how we get this done. So I thank Nan for all you do. Thank you what you're going to continue to do. Happy 35th anniversary. No justice, no peace.
Okay.
Come on. All right, next we will hear from our Manhattan Borough President, Brad Hoyman-Segal.
Good morning, Nan. I'm Brad Hoyman-Segal, the 29th Manhattan Borough President. What an honor to be here. I'm here with my Deputy Borough President, Misha Smith, who represents the entire borough, 1.6 million people, but more importantly, we represent Harlem. And I just want to thank Reverend Sharpton and Jennifer Jones-Austin for their historic support of Harlem. We know that Harlem is under enormous pressure. Since 2000, 33% of black Manhattanites have moved out of Harlem. And thanks to what Reverend Sharpton and Nan is doing with their historic new home, rebuilding the cultural infrastructure of Harlem, we will welcome more black New Yorkers back to the historic village of Harlem. And let me say something else, which is, as Manhattan Borough President, I follow such a long tradition of historic change makers in this office. David Dinkins was Manhattan Borough President. C. Virginia Fields was Manhattan Borough President. Percy Sutton was Manhattan Borough President. And let's not forget the first black woman to serve in the New York State Senate, the first black woman to be Manhattan Borough President, and the first black woman to be a federal judge, Constance Baker Motley. So I follow in this long lineage of incredible public servants, including Gail Brewer, including Mark Levine, and so many others. It's such an honor to be here to support Harlem. It's such an honor to be here to support Nan. Happy 35th anniversary.
Next, we will hear from our City Council Deputy Speaker, Natasha Williams. Dr. Natasha Williams.
Thank you. First, I want to thank Reverend Al Sharpton for putting together this annual conference and for his tremendous leadership with the National Action Network, and of course for his unparalleled contributions to the civil rights movement. I also want to divert a bit to talk about your vice chair, because when I first came into the council, she made me very aware of a set of ballot measures that were going to be on the ballot and the importance of uplifting those racial justice measures. Those passed, and you heard the mayor earlier talk about finally, after like 300 and plus days of this document being late, you heard the mayor talk about the racial equity plans. And I'm super excited, I know we are super excited to have those plans released. But one of the things that I've said consistently since the plans have been released is that they just can't be plans. Because we know government creates lots of plans and they sit on the shelf and collect dust. And so while we are excited for this framework, what I'm looking forward to is how we implement that plan, how we ensure that city dollars actually go towards racial equity. So I encourage you all to give comments with the Commission on Racial Equity to make sure your voice is heard in this process. I also want to thank my colleagues who are here in the City Council and all the elected officials who have joined today. So as we mark this 35th anniversary of the National Action Network, we remember why it was founded in the first place, and that is to give life to Dr. King's dream. A dream that one day our nation will live up to its promise of equality, not just in words, but in practice and under the law. And as a Black woman, as someone who comes from the very communities that organizations like NAM fight for every single day, I do not take this dream lightly. I live the reality of what happens when that promise falls short. And I also see the power of what happens when we organize, when we advocate, and when we demand better. The National Action Network has done so much to move us closer to that promise, whether it's fighting for policy changes in the halls of power or on the streets of Washington, whether it's organizing weekly rallies to build community or holding free legal clinics in Harlem. With your advocacy, your energy, and your commitment to the principles of Dr. King and what he preached, we have come so far. But as Dr. King once said, we are not satisfied and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. And I want to be clear, we are still not satisfied. In fact, we are more not satisfied than we've ever been before. So just like the work of the National Action Network, the City Council will not be satisfied until we live up to the full promise of equity for every New Yorker. Have a great conference.
Thank you. She's my ride or die in the trenches. Next, we will hear from Councilmember Amanda Farias.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Councilmember Amanda Farias from the Boogie Down Bronx. Okay, I expected some cheers. I'm really honored to be here this morning with all of you, specifically National Action Network folks, for this historic 35th anniversary. Thank you again, as everyone has given thanks to Reverend Al Sharpton for decades of fearless leadership and unwavering commitment to justice. For 35 years, we know what y'all have been up to. NAN has been on the front lines, turning pain into policy and advocacy into action. From police accountability to voting rights, this movement has never wavered in centering the voices of our communities. This is one of the most important civil rights organizations in the country, and that impact is felt every single day. We gather at a time when our democracy is being tested, when civil rights, economic justice, and public trust are all on the line. That moment calls not just for reflection, but for action. In New York City, we see firsthand how these fights for us, for our communities, show up in housing, in education, public safety, and economic opportunity. The work NAN has led nationally continues to shape how we get to fight locally for equity and dignity. Power in action is not just a theme, it is a responsibility. The next 35 years demands bold leadership, collective action, and policy that delivers real change. Thank you for doing the work, and thank you for doing the work with us. Congratulations on 35 years of impact, and here's to continuing the work together. Have a great conference.
Councilmember Yusef Salam.
I begin with the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. May the peace, mercy, and blessings from the owner of all peace, mercy, and blessings be upon each and every one of you and your families. We are at war, the bulk of which will not be physical, the bulk of which is mental. Psychological warfare to make me accept you is better, like your ice is colder or your water is wetter. They're holding court in the streets. This time, court will be sweet. We will not accept defeat. The signal will be your very heartbeat. National Action Network has always been at the front lines of everything known and unknown. Our great dear Reverend Sharpton, I thank you for so much that you have done, will do, because it's not a moment, but in fact, this is a movement. My name is Dr. Yusuf Salam. I'm the chair to the Committee to Combat Hate. It is such an honor to be able to utilize the very thing that caused me and my good brother Corey Wise, who was in the audience. When they looked at us when we were 14, 15, and 16-year-old children, they counted us out, but the stone that the builder refused will be the head cornerstone. Oftentimes I would say I'm honored, but more than that, I'm actually thankful. I'm thankful to have survived with my right mind. I'm thankful to be in a position where, as the former mayor used to say, going from being rejected to selected to now an elected member of the very city council, the same place that they stole us from. So what I want to remind you in my open remarks as I take my seat is that National Action Network has always been about action. It's not been about just thought, it's been about planning, it's been about making master chess moves so that in on to the future, the enemy won't even see you coming. You know, when Dr. Maya Angelou encouraged us, she said, you should be angry, but you must not be bitter. She said, bitterness is like a cancer. It eats upon the host. It doesn't do anything to the object of his displeasure. But this is the alchemy. She said, use that anger. You dance it. You march it. You vote it. She said, you talk it. Never stop talking it. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a midterm coming up. I need everybody to move with a sense of urgency, like your children's future depends on it. I'm Councilman Dr. Yusuf Salam, the chair to the Committee to Combat Hate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gail Brewer.
Thank you very much, Jennifer Jones Austin, and I also want to call out my friend Dawn Jones. I want to say a couple of things. I am a Gail Brewer. I represent the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I've been in office since 2002, both as borough president and city council, and I feel I've been at not then every Saturday morning. I will say that the reason it's so important to be here today, that man in the White House wants to do so many horrible things. Obviously, war. Obviously, passed the SAVE Act, which would mean that 21 million Americans could not vote. We're not going to have that act, but even the thought that he would want to do it, he wants to cut all of SNAP and food stamps. In New York City, not only would we kill ourselves in terms of people who need food, but we would cut all the broadband that people get if they have SNAP. He also, of course, wants to cut transportation money. He wants to cut money for affordable housing. The list goes on and on. The great thing about Saturday mornings at NAN or wherever you are with NAN is you get information. You get information. There are forums on home ownership. I participate as head of Government Affairs Committee on forums on how to vote. We get forums on how to participate as women on Women's History Month, Black History Month, all part of what NAN does, because information in this city and this country is hard to come by. And NAN provides that every single day. So I'm here to say, in this crazy world where between government and community, there's often a challenge to make sure that the community comes first It is NAN that makes sure, whether it is on Christmas giving out food, Thanksgiving giving out food, every single day making sure the Harlem community is taken care of no matter who you are. So I'm saying that is how we should structure our community and our city, how NAN does. So I'm here to say thank you not just to Reverend, but to all the team. You walk into that dilapidated looking place, you'll have a nice new one soon. And the welcome, the hospitality, and the warmth is there for everybody. And I want the rest of the world to understand that's how we should operate. Thank you very much.
Amen. All right, and lastly, we will hear from our Bronx Borough President. I'm going to say my roller skating buddy, Vanessa Gibson.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Truly giving honor to God, who is absolutely the head of my life. I am so thankful that he has brought us together for such a time as this. The 35th conference hosted by the National Action Network. Let's give a round of applause to our founder and president, the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton. To Chairman Dr. Franklin Richardson, to my dear sister, our Vice Chair, Attorney Jennifer Jones Austin, to my dear sister, Rachel Norlinger, and my sister, Dominique Sharpton and Ashley Sharpton, to the NAN Youth Huddle members, and all of the board members of NAN, and each and every one of you, thank you for being here today. Folks, you've heard a lot of comments from elected officials. We know the work that must be done. We know our marching orders. And so this conference, Power in Action, 35 years of justice, of impact, and purpose. It reminds us that every day we must fulfill the destiny of our ancestors. I am proud to serve as the president of the great borough of the Boogie Down Bronx. And certainly to all of my colleagues in government, I want to say thank you because we are partners in this work. I am the first ever African American and woman to serve as Bronx Borough President. And I am honored to say that because for me, all of this work is about legacy and about footprints. It is about raising the standard of what leadership is all about. It is about reminding ourselves that we are blessed to be a blessing to others. It is about reminding us that we are better when we work together. It is a reminder that when we climb the ladder, we have to lift someone with us. It is a reminder that there is nothing greater that we can invest in than education. It is a reminder that our young children, our black boys and girls, and our brown boys and girls, it is a reminder that every young person is ambitious and bold and creative and driven. And all we must do, folks, is invest in young people. We must make sure that some of the negativity we see among young people must be channeled and repurposed to something positive. Let us lift young people up in this moment. Let us recognize that in all of this work, it is about protecting black and brown communities that have often been left behind, ignored, denied opportunities. But in this 35th conference, we have to be strategic, we have to be thoughtful, and we have to be intentional about this work. Each of us has a purpose, and we are all called to serve in some way. So I need all of our activists and advocates and parents and faith leaders and non-for-profits organizations. I need everyone in this moment to understand that this is a call to action and attention. This president, this White House is doing everything that they said they would do. And I am often reminded, in the words of our dear sister Maya Angelou,
When people show you who they are, you believe them. So we can't be surprised by the actions of this president. We cannot be surprised at his tweets and his words. But what we must do is ensure that our communities are educated and empowered and encouraged and motivated to do something. To not be a bystander, but be an upstander of justice and fairness and equality. Every right that we are afforded as Americans has been at risk. Voting rights, labor rights, women's rights, LGBTQIA plus rights. Everything that we have been afforded is now in jeopardy. And so we know that we have to be about action, folks. That's what this conference is about. It is about coming together in such a way and talking about the issues and having community-driven solutions. So as the Bronx Borough President, I am proud to do this work in partnership with all of my elected officials because the Bronx is often counted out. And what I know about being counted out is when folks count you out, God will always count you in. As a winner representing excellence, we are kings and we are queens, and we cannot allow this Trump administration to treat us less than. We have the power. We have the rights, folks. All we have to do is execute them. That's what this conference is about. And so I am proud to work with all of you, to walk with all of you in this moment, because leadership matters. And folks, guess what? You do not need a title in front of your name to be a part of changing your community. But guess what? If you do the work, the title will come. So I need everyone to be a part of this conference for this 35th year. And equally as important, I need all of you to take that information and bring it back to your community. Help someone, because there is so much happening in this world. It feels like a full-time job fighting against this administration. But what my faith tells me is every setback is preparation for a comeback. This is a comeback moment, folks. And so as I close, let me remind all of you that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Every hope and every aspiration that they fought and died for. Let us not lose sight of what this moment means. Let us be about action and attention, and let us do this work that we have all been called to do. And what I like to say in the Bronx is that we do this work and we serve our people, our community, our children, our veterans, our union members, our older adults. We do this work with passion and purpose. So keep fighting, Nan. Keep going. Keep encouraging. Keep motivating. Stay strong. Don't get distracted. Stay focused. Keep your eyes on the prize. Happy 35th conference, Nan. God bless you, community, and thank you for the work that you do. Amen.
Amen. Let's just give another round of applause to our elected officials. And now I present to you once again our president, Reverend Al Sharpton.
Let me, as we prepare to go to our first panel, let me say, particularly for our chapter leaders and others from around the country, on yesterday, National Action Network closed on owning and purchased and handed over $6 million to buy the Faison Firehouse. We're going to have to spend another $1 million doing some rehab. Now, we had to borrow, we got to pay that mortgage off. but we got some friends, and I'll tell you more about that at the dinner tonight, that helped to put up the collateral for us to borrow that. We had $1 million cash, the rest we borrowed. I bring that up because of two things, Yusef. One, I want to make it clear that this organization is going to live longer than Al Sharpton. People talk about when we got started, oh, that's just Sharpton and just somewhere he wanted to do. You don't buy a building unless you intend to be here. I can keep renting and just going. When I go, it's over. Y'all have a big funeral, cry, and go on, carry on. I want to establish the permanence of this organization. So that is why, as I go through my last couple of years as president, I want to buy something so the next president doesn't have to worry about paying rent, don't have to worry about anything, because we're going to give them equity because they'll own a building that they could always have equity to. So tell all my haters, and I tell you, when I look at Corey Weiss and Yusef, who we fought for over 30 years ago, they would tell you many of the activist groups never left a building or never left a market. NAN is one of the few that has been able to institutionalize, and I thank you and give you credit for that. Secondly, when we see Jennifer Jones Austin, where'd Jenny go? Okay, she's in the front row. Jennifer Jones Austin is the head of Protestant welfare agencies in New York. She is also the vice chairman of our national board. But she was raised in activism. Her father, Reverend Dr. William Augustus Jones Jr., was the head of Greater New York SCLC Operation Breadbasket under Dr. King, and then was appointed breadbasket under Reverend Jackson. She grew up in the house of an activist. When my mother was concerned about me becoming seemingly leaning toward politics or civil rights, I was a boy preacher. Started in the Pentecostal church when I was 4 years old. Still got some Pentecostalism. Jamie Bland and me still shout every now and then. You put on the right tune, I'll cut a step now. We still. And when my father left and we had to move to the projects, I'd watch Adam Clayton Powell. My mother was scared. She wanted me to stay fundamentalist. And now fundamentalism got a bad name. They call it Christian nationalism, whatever that means. And anyway, she brought me to Bishop Washington, my pastor, who brought me and my mother across the street. He said, I know what to do with him. He can stay in the church and be active. And brought me to Jenny's father, Reverend William Jones. And he was the head of Breadbasket. He taught me, first time I picketed, we were picketing A&P, which was the path model of that time, and made them give us contracts, made them put people on the board. So I was raised in this. I was 12 years old. I became his youth director at 13, introduced me to Jesse Jackson. I became their protege, and went on. So Jenny grew up in this. When I keep hearing, and there's a lot of our young people that are from Youth Huddle, we bring in students. We went on the HBCU tour. Where's Cassius Rudolph? I just saw Cassius Rudolph that did our tour, and many of our young leaders. When I see them, Christian, and who's a young man, did our sermon on our inspirational word,
when I see these young people, it reminds me that I grew up in this. We keep having people tell us they want young leadership. We have young leadership that are growing up in the movement. The reason why some of the young folks y'all are talking about, they've been parachuted in by others to confuse a process. Hello? Jesse grew up under Dr. King from a student leader. Malcolm was trained by Elijah Muhammad, who trained the, so don't get it twisted. Everybody hollering loud ain't saying something. We need activists that are at large, but we need those that will continue these institutions and these organizations. And that's why I was able to go and help for the last few years with Reverend Jackson, because he was with me when we started NAN. I was under him from when I was 12. He named it the House of Justice. I am suspicious of anybody that I don't know their background, where you come from. All of a sudden I see you out there in front of a march you didn't call, and we gonna make you the leader. Or you got 7 likes on Facebook and all of a sudden you the new thing. So let us be real clear. And the last part of this is people talking about, well, I wish so-and-so would step aside, make room for me. Nobody stepped aside for me. Nobody stepped aside for anybody. If you are what you should be, you don't have to have nobody step aside. People will push you up. Anybody tell you somebody got to step aside for them is not worth leading you, guiding you, or dealing with you. So I want to straighten some of that out before we get into our workshops. We're going to hear the speakers and the 5 things, then we're going to do workshops to plan going forward. Lastly, tonight, many of you that are coming to the dinner, we're going to be on time. One thing about National Action Network in 35 years, Phil Griffin, we have our dinners that start and end on the same day. Some of y'all go to dinners that start as dinner and end up as breakfast. But I got proper people that know how to execute, like Camille Joseph. Stand up, Camille's one of our big members in support. Nobody support us more. So we gonna do this with proper decorum. One of the things that made National Action Network is that we would fight cases that no one else would fight. We never joined a real popular case. We joined a case that made it popular. That's why I always say, people say that, Sharpton and them always out there trying to get publicity. That's exactly why people call me. Nobody call me to keep a secret. I mean, think about how crazy that is. Reverend Al, the police killed my son, but don't tell nobody. That's why they call us, to put a spotlight on where was dark places. That's why Dr. King had to come deal with Rosa Parks. We learned this. Spotlight is part of the strategy to make an issue happen. Oh, Reverend Al and them having their convention going to have a lot of press. That's the point. Because if we don't get the press, all you're going to have is crazy Trump talking nuts tonight, selling wolf tickets to Iran rather than dealing with the problems of affordability and the problems of affordable health care. So when people tell you about the media, tell them yes, guilty. And that's what we need, to keep a spotlight on what's going on. And I'll tell you this, and I'll bring on the next panel. I didn't learn that, Yusef, in college. I dropped out of college. I didn't learn that in college. I learned it because when we had to move to the Albany projects, and then we moved in a tenement in Brooklyn, we had roaches. Now, I know some of you bourgeoisie don't know nothing about roaches. But we had roaches. And I don't care how much Raid we sprayed on them. Now I hear some murmurs, so some of y'all know about what Raid is. We couldn't get rid of the roaches. And I remember we had got it down in our little apartment, and I went one night, I got up, went to get something out the refrigerator, and roaches all over the kitchen table. I ran and woke my sister up. I said, Cheryl, come here, the roaches. She said, leave me alone. I said, no, you got to help me with the roaches. She stumbled, half asleep, kicked the light on, cleared her eyes and looked. She said, ain't no roaches here. I said, I'm serious. They was right there. 5 or 6, 7 roaches. She said, leave me alone. Went back and laid down. I couldn't figure out what happened. So I was standing there, and I walked back in the kitchen, looked, the roaches was back on the table. So I ran back and got against Cheryl. I dragged out of bed. They back, I'm telling you, they roaches. She stumbled, she said, I'm gonna kill you. I said, no, I'm serious. She cut the light on, no roaches. So I figured this thing out. If you put the light on, roaches will run. Roaches only get comfortable in the dark. So I spent all my life cutting the light on the roaches I found all over the United States. Let me bring to the platform, let me first bring the moderator of this session. Many years ago, there was a young man killed in a boot camp in Florida. Savagely killed. They began protesting it, some of the students at Florida A&M. And they got a very competent and committed lawyer to help to lead the protest and the case. He got in touch with us and asked would I come down to Tallahassee and help with this. And we did. And there was something about him that struck me as sincere, that he wasn't just a lawyer looking for a payday, but that his heart was in it. And we've been together ever since. He was unknown then, now he's world known. He has been one that has been in the trenches and has been fighting, and even after he's become famous and a best-selling author and all of that. We were together last week in Hartford, Connecticut for a young man nobody ever heard of. I call him the Attorney General of Black America. May we bring to the platform Attorney Ben Crump.
35 years. Good morning, Nan. Y'all give it up for my mentor, my co-counsel, a man who always answers the bell. He's been answering the bell for 35 years for Black America. Y'all give it up for our civil rights leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton. Y'all can do better than that. Y'all get on your feet. Reverend Al Sharpton. And before I let him go, now more than ever, especially since our mentor, Reverend Jesse Jackson, transitioned, we have to now be more intentional than ever when we get an opportunity to give flowers to those trailblazers who led the way for so many of us. I don't want ever to miss an opportunity
to tell Reverend Al how much he means to Black America now more than ever. More than ever. And the last thing I will say is, you know, there are times when we pass the torch. And Reverend Jackson, he often blushes about how Reverend Jackson mentored him. I have to believe, Reverend Al, that Reverend Jesse Jackson was awfully proud but awfully at peace knowing that there was somebody to pass the torch to a new civil rights leader for America for these times such as these. Yeah, again, let's thank Reverend Al for taking the torch and being our civil rights leader for the United States of America. I love you, Reverend. Amen. So, good morning, man. Y'all know it's that time where we bring out the people who turn their pain into power, turn tragedy into triumph, and refuse to accept injustice. You know, this young man on the stage is the epitome of transforming tragedy into triumph. I mean, when you think about a lie that tried to steal the freedom of a group of young black boys, immediately it comes to mind what happened here in New York City, especially when the person who occupies the White House took out a full-page ad trying to say that they should be sentenced to death, even though there was not a scintilla of truth about what happened to them. And he refused to lose, and I am so proud that God has made his test into a testimony. Y'all give it up for the New York City Councilman, Dr. Yusuf Salaam. And another individual who was an example for so many. She taught so many how to not only grieve publicly, but still advocate for justice when her 17-year-old son was profiled, pursued, and shot in his heart while he walked home from the 7-Eleven with a bag of Skittles and a can of iced tea and was talking on the cell phone to his high school friend, and this neighborhood watch volunteer with a 9mm gun killed him and then said that he was standing his ground. Well, thank God that she stood her ground. You all give it up for the mother of Trayvon Benjamin Martin, Miss Sabrina Fulton. Thank you, Queen. And then, y'all, this sister here, Trayvon was 2012. Man, it's hard to believe. It seemed like it was only yesterday, Sabrina, Reverend Al and Reverend Jackson and everybody coming down to Sanford, Florida. But this next sister, tragedy of how she lost her son was so very similar, because just like Trayvon killer pursued him and then tried to say it was self-defense, well, this sister in 2020 her son in Brunswick, Georgia, thank God we have video. Trayvon didn't have video, but in Brunswick, Georgia, when Ahmaud Arbery was lynched for jogging while black, not in 1940, not in 1950, but in 2020, in our day, he was lynched for jogging while black. And the killers, even though they lynched him, chased him down like a dog while they were on the back of a pickup truck with a Confederate flag on the license plate, and one of them had a shotgun riding in the bed of the pickup truck, chasing him just for jogging while black. And it is so tragic that even though they killed them, even though they had video that the prosecutor saw day one, they still got to sleep in their bed for 72 hours because they accepted the word of the killers as the gospel. But thank God, his mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, refused to stay silent, and she continued to fight and not only make history by having a conviction of the killers on the federal level, but also on the state level by passing for the first time the Georgia hate crime law. She is a person who has become a force of nature. Y'all give it up for Ahmaud Arbery's mother, Wanda Cooper Jones. And she got a new look like Patti LaBelle from her head to her toe. Now, this next sister, y'all, sometimes you literally cannot believe the way they kill our children and try to justify it. I mean, Dr. Salam, nobody would believe this if they wrote it in a Hollywood movie. But it actually happened in Ocala, Florida. There was a white lady who considered herself to be the perfect neighbor, who were harassing little black children who lived in the neighborhood. And it was her perspective that these little black children didn't have a right to play in their neighborhood, even though it was a football field next to the apartment complex. For whatever reason, this Karen felt that she could, I don't know how else to describe her. But when Alan, she took the tablet of one of the children and took it away from them, they went home and told their mother, a hard-working sister, a manager at McDonald's, raising her babies, her 4 babies, doing the best she can. She came to demand that this lady not harass her children anymore. And it was documented over and over again. You know, Sabrina, about Trayvon killer, it was documented how they had prior harassment of little children. I mean, 5, 6, 7 years old. And so she came to the door and she was knocking on the door, a door that was a metal door, a door that was locked, a door that had a deadbolt on it. And so she was knocking on the door demanding that the lady return the tablet and apologize. And what this lady did next, nobody can believe it. You still can't believe it. She claimed that she feared for her life. She was behind a locked metal barricade door. All she had to do was call 911. But she didn't do that. She took a gun and with A.J. Owens' 2 little boys standing there by her side, she shot through that door, hitting their mother, and their mother fell to the ground dying. And one of the most heartbreaking things ever is when you see the video of those little boys knocking on the neighbors' doors saying, please help me. The lady shot my mama. She's lying on the ground. Please help me. And one of the big brothers trying to console the little brother who's crying uncontrollably. Well, thank God for the efforts of their grandmother, who had already raised her children. But she then, as so often, had to come, and the village, it takes all of us to raise her grandchildren, not only to raise her grandchildren, but to get justice. And in getting justice, she was the executive producer of a Oscar-nominated documentary. Some of you all may have seen it. Now it's been nominated for a Peabody Award. She won so many awards with this documentary. It is called The Perfect Neighbor. Give it up for the woman who made sure the perfect neighbor was arrested, convicted, and is in prison for manslaughter for killing her daughter, A.J. Owens. Y'all give it up for Miss Pamela Diaz. Thank you so much, Pamela. Everybody got new looks like Patti LaBelle. I mean, she got a new look too. I don't know what they drinking, Dr. Salam, but these women, none of them look like grandmamas. And next, you all know this lady oh too well. Because like Sabrina, she was one of the original mothers of the movement. I mean, before we started screaming, I can't breathe for George Floyd, we was screaming, I can't breathe for Eric Gardner once he was choked right here in Staten Island, New York, and they still never arrested and convicted any of the officers, but she refused to let them sweep it under the rug, and she made certain that in the city of New York, Dr. Salim, that they passed the Eric Gardner law to make sure that they outlaw the chokehold. Y'all give it up for the force of nature, Miss Gwen Crump. Yeah, don't she look good in her purple? Right here. And again, I just gotta say, y'all, they all got a new attitude like Patti LaBelle. I mean, wow, they've been working out, getting their mind, body, and soul right. Now this next young man, boy, time seems to just fly. It's hard to believe that it's been over 5 years since we all watched the torture video of George Perry Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where he said, I can't breathe 28 times while a police officer kept his knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. And once you see that video, you cannot unsee that video. And I remember, Sabrina, the first time he did an interview, he was crying, it was uncontrollable. I mean, you could tell that he was a person who grew up with his big brother as his hero. I mean, so like so many of us, we shared beds together, and there's a special bond when you grow up on the rough side of the mountain and you share close living quarters with your siblings. And I can't even imagine what it must have been like when he watched that video of his brother begging for life, calling out for their mother, and yet Derek Chauvin kept his knee on his neck. I mean, his testimony in the historic trial was just something so powerful. The fact that he and his family was really the precedent setting of not only getting full justice in every way, because for so long they said black people, you could only get a conviction at a criminal level or you can get the civil settlement, but you couldn't get both. Well, not only did they get a record-breaking civil settlement, the most ever paid out in a police wrongful death case of $27 million, but they got criminal justice on the state level and they got justice on the federal level. Y'all give it up for a young man that has become the voice for the movement for George Floyd for justice, his little brother, for Lotus Floyd. Hey, and again, Patty LaBelle, new attitude. Y'all see how he getting back to his fighting weight and lost all that weight? I'm saying, Miss Keita Floyd, keep doing whatever y'all doing. And then I think this next person, man, just like Dr. Yusef Salaam, he was wrongfully accused and wrongfully convicted. And if you saw the masterpiece that Ava DuVernay put in the mini series, How They See Us, all you can do is applaud this brother every time you see him for making sure the Central Park Five became the exonerated five. You all stand to your feet for King Corey Wise. King Corey Wise. King Corey Wise. What he had to endure, my Lord. And then last but not least, and it's so heavy on my heart right now because we see what this Trump administration is doing. I mean, all the things Wanda Cooper Jones, we did on the federal level for loaners, trying to get the fighting to make sure we got convictions and we got accountability. But then, just like our sister Breonna Taylor, you all saw last week in Louisville, Kentucky, where the Department of Justice petitioned the court to dismiss the charges against the police officers who kicked in her front door at 1 o'clock in the morning and unnecessarily, unjustifiably, and unconstitutionally mutilated this unarmed queen named Breonna Taylor with 8 bullet holes while she was practically naked in her nightgown. And they dismissed the charges. And equally troubling is what they are doing right now in Memphis, Tennessee, with the federal conviction of the criminal charges of the 5 black officers who killed Tyree Nichols while he was just trying to get home. And you all saw the video now. You saw what he said to them. I'm just trying to go home. There could not be a more heartbreaking proclamation as they continue to just beat him and kick him and body slam him over and over again until he died. And now they are trying to dismiss these charges as well, even though his mother and father did everything that parents could do to make sure that they got justice. And so I want them to know now at the National Action Network Conference on April 11, 2026, no matter what this Trump administration do to try to deny them justice, that we're going to continue to stand up with them, we're going to continue to speak up with them, and we're going to continue to fight with them. As long as we know that we got their back, they will get justice. Y'all give it up for the parents of Tyree Nichols, Rovon Wells, and Rodney Wells. We are standing with you. We know what you're going through. We know they're trying to have a miscarriage of justice. I mean, Miss Rovon, it's a shame before God what they're trying to do to y'all. I mean, this is going on right now. They're trying to petition the court to get rid of the charges. And so we are going to move fairly quickly today. We have two big questions for the panel. As Reverend Al said, because of your efforts, I wrote a fiction novel, a Black Perry Mason series, because I kept watching the Lincoln Lawyer and the Rainmaker and Perry Mason and Matlock, and I kept waiting for them to have a black superhero trial lawyer, and since they never would do it, I said, Sabrina, I got to write it myself. And thanks to you all, it has become #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list in the legal thriller genre. So thank you, Black America, for letting us tell our stories. And the book is entitled Worse Than a Lie. And so, you know, I selected that title because I heard my grandmother say on occasion, Pam, what's worse than a lie? She said to tell the truth and have nobody believe you. She said that's worse than a lie. And I say, Yusef, Corey, y'all, it gets so much deeper in the novel, especially in real life, when you go and you're fighting for your freedom in a racist criminal justice system, and you are telling the truth and nobody in the system believes you. I can only imagine, y'all, how many sisters and brothers every day in courtrooms, in cities, in states all across America have to go into courts and lie on themselves and enter into trumped up plea agreements. And I do mean trumped up plea agreements because the alternative is so much worse of them rolling the dice and going to trial with a jury of anybody but a jury of their peers, and then they're being wrongfully convicted and having to spend decades in prison for a crime they didn't commit. Now that's worse than a lie, and it happens every day in America. And so my question to the panel, starting with you, Sabrina Fulton, is when your loved one, and it's going to be for everybody, when your loved one was first tragically killed and injustice happened, what was the lie that they tried to tell you to justify the killing, and what did you do to overcome the lie? We taking testimonies this morning, Nan. So Sabrina Fulton, if you would answer that question.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I just want to say thank you for having me again, and good morning. The biggest lie that was told was that the reason why Trayvon was shot and killed was because his hoodie. And I'm wearing a hoodie today, and I ask you, do I look suspicious?
That part.
So that was the biggest lie that they told, that Trayvon was wearing a hoodie. But we all know it was the color of his skin that caused his own death. So there were several things, but that was the major lie that was told, that it was the hoodie. Anderson Cooper, who is right here on air, was one of the first people to step out as a white person to say he wears his hoodie to work every day. He rides his bicycle. He wears his hoodie to work every day, and he doesn't look suspicious.
Amen.
So that was just something in our mind, and our young people continue to wear their hoodies. They don't look suspicious because their kids don't look suspicious. What I decided to do is I decided to speak up for my son, who could no longer speak for himself. Attorney Crump knows that I told myself and everybody that I was not coming back to Sanford because that's where my son was shot and killed. And I said I wasn't coming back, but when they told us that they wasn't going to arrest the person who shot and killed Trayvon, I packed my bags and I was in mommy mode, and I have been in mommy mode since then.
Amen. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for being a trailblazer for so many. And then, Ms. Gwen Carr, the question is very simple. What was the lie they told you when they first killed your son, Eric Gardner, and what did you do to overcome the lie and get the truth out?
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to see all of you. But yes, the biggest lie that they told, they didn't know it was a video out yet. So they said that the police was talking to him and he had a heart attack. So, you know, if there wasn't a video, they would have stuck by that lie. And so after I actually found out what happened to my son, you know, I was in a dark place for a while. You know, I didn't even want to get up out of bed. But then I said to myself, if I don't get up and I don't speak my son's name, who will? Because I thought at the time, I said, boy, I should have been there when that police officer was choking my child. He would have had to kill both of us. But then the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, well, if you were there and they killed you too, who would be here to lift up your son's name? Who would be here to tell the story and not put a spin on it? Because we know that the news media, they always put a spin on the story. Amen. They want to say that the person was homeless. They want to say all kind of things. They want to put him on trial instead of the murderer. They don't want to put the murderer on trial. They want to put him on trial. So yes, so then after that, when I start meeting all these lovely people who, you know, was feeling the same way I was. See, because we're the only ones who have had this tragedy, who really knows how it feels to lose a child. You know, people will say, I know how you feel, but no, you don't. And you don't want that feeling either. Amen. So, but you know, I did get a law change. I did get the Eric Gardner anti-chokehold law passed. And that was after 5 years, but I fought for 5 years, and thanks to a lot of people who I had my back who fought with me. A lot of politicians, they fought with me. So, you know, you just got to get out there, and you sometimes have to step out the box and just see who will be with you, and then you'll find out who is against you.
Thank you, Ms. Gwen. Thank you so much, Ms. Gwen. And now, Ms. Rovan and Rodney, what was the lie that they told you after they killed your son? And what did you all do to get the truth out and overcome the lie?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. On January 7th, 2023, the Memphis police officers came to my door and they told me my son was being arrested for a DUI. And it puzzled me because, first of all, my son don't drink. They told me that he was being transported to the hospital because he had got pepper sprayed.
Mm-hmm.
They also asked me, was he on some type of drug? And that confused me, because they said that he came out like he was the Hulk or some damn body. When I asked them where my son was, they told me he was nearby. They didn't give me a location. They told me they were going to take him to the hospital. I asked if I could go to the hospital. They told me no, because he was arrested. My husband and I, after they left, we decided to go look around, and we found Ty's car with other police officers. They basically told us the same thing, that my son was acting like the Hulk. They tried to arrest him, and he fought them. Hours passed. I received a phone call from a doctor at the hospital, and he asked me if I knew if my son was in the hospital, and I told him yes. They told me that he was being arrested and he had got pepper sprayed. The doctor told me, no, ma'am, your son went into cardiac arrest, and that you need to get to the hospital as soon as possible. Now, mind you, they didn't tell me any of this. When I got to the hospital and I walked into my son's room, all I saw was him in a bunch of tubes, and basically he was brain dead. I was there for about 5 minutes, and next thing I know, TBI, which is the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, all came in, and they removed every police officer in the room, because they knew they had lied as well. Knowing that the police officers came to our door and just blatantly lied to us was just something that I couldn't believe. I mean, how could you come to someone's door and lie to them about their child? As the days went on, we found out that it was 5 Memphis police officers that beat my son to death. They kicked him. They kicked him in the head. They beat him, and for no reason. The reason was, well, after we found out that one of the officers had pepper sprayed himself, and so he got mad, and then he also said that he took out his anger on my son because the stop before him didn't pan out. So could you just imagine somebody trying to come home, minding their business, and a police officer is pissed off because the prior stop wasn't sufficient for them, so they decided to mess with your child and then lie about it.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm gonna leave it at this because there's certain things I just can't say, and I don't want to keep talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zohran. Mr. Rodney, you have anything to add? Okay. Well, again, y'all, we know the lies that are swarming even now. As I've never seen it. You all watch Law and Order. Have you ever seen the prosecutor come and volunteering that we want to dismiss charges even after we got the conviction? They ain't do that with you, did they, yourself? Corey, did they ever come just volunteer? Say, we want to dismiss the charges while y'all was sitting in prison? They didn't come and say they wanted to dismiss the charges to help y'all get out of jail, did they? Is it my turn? Not yet. Coming. We coming, Corey. We coming. All right. Philonis Floyd, if you could tell National Action Network audience what was the lie when they killed your brother that they told you all to try to justify it, and how did you all, what did you all do to get the truth out and make sure that the lie didn't live forever?
Y'all can hear me? Yeah. Well, my brother, he was murdered May 25th, 2020. in Minneapolis at Cups Food, right across the street from Cups Food. He came out. They said he had a $20 counterfeit bill. And when the police came out to speak with him and put him in the car and things like that, the officers were, to him, the state that he was in, he didn't have an understanding. But with police, they have all the power. So they wanted to put him in the car. Then they took him out the car, put him on the side by the curb. And next thing you know, they was talking to other officers, and then the Chauvin, he came. And when he came, he was a different police officer. He took my brother out, and he was agitated, I guess, and he just put his knee on my brother's neck. And my brother was crying, and he was screaming, and he was begging for our mother and stuff. And people watched it, and people videoed it. So you all seen what I seen. Because at the end of the day, his life mattered. And everybody who was there, they had from kids to adults who've been through so much that I haven't had the opportunity to see. But with him crying for his mom, that's the thing that I think about a lot when I'm sitting there watching him, and I'm thinking about his daughter, seeing that video. 9 minutes and 29 seconds for a man to have his life taken away. For that event that happened at the time, he became a catalyst for change. No matter who was there, they seen that video all around the world. And they had the opportunity to say, hey, y'all need to stop doing what you all doing, because we human. At the end of the day, my brother, he couldn't speak for himself. He screamed my mom's name out so many times. The video was harsh. I didn't have the opportunity to be there because I know I would have jumped and stopped a lot of this stuff, because I just can't see a man go out like that. But the day before I spoke for the first time, I had the opportunity to speak to Miss Gwen Carr. And she was on the phone explaining to me how her son said he couldn't breathe, just like my brother said he couldn't breathe. So when me getting out, speaking about so much about him and his murder, it breaks me down every day. I get to, like, right now, it's in me. My brother, he hangs around me, but God lives inside of me. Every day when I go to places, people say, George, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Come and see all the people in New York who watched that video, who know what tragedy is. They've been with Reverend Al Sharpton for years and decades, but they seen so much. And when people had the opportunity to see what happened to George, it kind of made people realize that if he can't get justice, how anybody can get justice.
Amen.
All I can tell you this is, he put me in a position where I had no choice. It's like a squirrel getting cornered in the concrete in the corner in a wall. What he gonna do? He gonna come out fighting.
Amen.
And that's exactly what I did. I went to speaking for not just my brother, but speaking for others all across the country.
Thank you. Thank you, Philonis, for fighting for all of us. You know, and it's so deep, Miss Diaz, because I remember the police initially put in the police report that George died from an undiagnosed medical condition. And thank God for that video, because Sabrina, had it not been for the video, that was the story. He had an undiagnosed medical condition. And I know Ms. Diaz, it took a long time for them to arrest the killer of your daughter. So if you could tell National Action Network audience, what was the lie they first told you when they notified you that your daughter had been killed, and what did you do to expose the truth and to overcome the lie?
The lie that was told was, stand your ground. We have this white woman who was harassing children for being children over a span of 2 years or more. She utilized her whiteness, her white privilege, abused the 911 system for children simply being children. And on June 2nd of 2023, she shot my daughter through a locked metal door. It took 4 days for an arrest because they claimed it could possibly be stand your ground. But the bigger lie in all of this was they didn't think that my daughter's life, my grandchildren's lives, and all black and brown lives mattered. That's why it took 4 days.
My Lord.
And then in order to get justice, because they had no plans on making an arrest, we had to call on Attorney General for Black America, Attorney Benjamin Crump. We were grateful that Reverend Sharpton and Joy Reid covered the story and brought national attention. And that's how we were able to get an arrest and ultimately seek justice.
Amen. Amen. You know, as I listened to Ms. Diaz speak, I could only imagine if the roles would have been reversed. Could you all imagine if a black woman shot through a locked metal deadbolted door, killing a white woman in front of her children? Would it take 4 days for her to be arrested? Even if she made it to the jailhouse. I mean, it's a shame before God, but again, if you all haven't seen that documentary, The Perfect Neighbor, y'all please watch it, because, I mean, you talk about white privilege, boy. Before we come back to our homeboys from New York, and I know they ready, especially Corey. I want to hear from this sister who really, y'all, when they murdered her son, she just would not stop. She said, I'm going to get full justice. And we're still fighting for full justice. And so, Wanda Cooper Jones, could you tell us what was the lie they told you when they first contacted you to justify killing your child? And what did you do to overcome that lie and make sure the truth got out?
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's so good to be back. The lie that was actually told was, I'll never forget the conversation where I was called by an investigator saying that Ahmaud was involved in a home burglary. And when he was confronted by the homeowner, there was a fight over the firearm, and unfortunately, Ahmaud was shot and killed. The men who killed my son was free for 74 days before an arrest was made. And it wasn't just my cry for justice, it was the cry from all of us for justice. They tried to use, well, Ms. Cooper Jones, we have a video. Show me the video and I'll go away. Not knowing the video was so tragic that my son was actually just running, and he ran into fear. So what I did next was we got convictions on state and federal levels, and it wasn't just what I did, it's what we all did. Thank you.
Hey, Wanda, tell them what convictions you got, and tell us about Georgia, because it had never been done. Take a moment and take a victory lap.
Sure. In the state of Georgia, they tried to use the citizen's arrest, initially saying that the murderers was trying to make an arrest because the mob was doing something so wrong. But now in the books of Georgia, there's no more law that says that citizens can make an arrest. That law was put in place, I think it was 1867 during slavery. Now that law is no longer in the books of Georgia. And also, the state saw that a mob was killed just due to pure hate. There is a hate crime law in the state of Georgia that was implemented for my son, Ahmaud Arbery.
Amen. Amen. Can you imagine that, Dr. Yusef Salaam? Can you imagine the audacity of these two white men saying, we're going to make a citizen's arrest and hunt him down like a dog? I mean, a law that was used in the 1860s that gave white people the authority to, at any point, if they thought that black people were doing something that they did not approve of, that they could make a citizen's arrest. And they tried to say that in 2020. I'm just saying, y'all, I'm just saying, there's a lot going on in America. And that's why I'm so proud of this next young leader. He represents the best our future has to offer. I mean, yeah, y'all give it up for y'all councilman as I pose the question to him. Every time he is up there articulating in such a way to make them feel what the black struggle is, because the struggle is real. Dr. Yusef Salaam and Mr. Corey Wise, I'm going to have both of you address that question because it's so germane to everything that you all had to endure. What was the lie they told, and how did y'all overcome the lie? Yes, sir, King Corey Wise.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
I had to do that for Rev. I would like to say, under this moment, under this situation right about now, I would like to thank my Reyes Mateas for freeing me, for blessing my name, bringing me here before you, before New York and the world.
Yes, sir. We with you, Corey. We with you, Corey. We with you.
When Reyes came before me, back in the yard, it was about 10,000 of us in the yard. 10,000, maybe 20,000. We all waiting on the door to open up. Or 10,000 of us in the yard coming from programs. So Reyes, somebody was walking towards me. Little light-skinned face. As he was walking out while I was on the basketball court. I wasn't playing ball, just waiting on the door to open back up so I could run back to my cell. That's why I lived at. No more East Harlem. Thanks to you. So, Reyes says to me, I see that you still have the cut on your face from our incident in the day room. That was so much of a setback to me because I wasn't expecting for nobody or for him to say that to me. Because that was a form of a flashback to me. And I wouldn't know how to deal with that flashback. But when he had came before me, I would like to say, but it didn't go that way. I wasn't on the wall in Auburn with 5 brothers doing the doo-wop. Which we was back in East Harlem. It was just me. Yeah. He had to say nothing to me. If he hadn't said nothing to me, I've been doing 15 alive. 15 alive, people, fighting every day. So the only reason why I'm in the state of mind right about now, before this day is over with, before I'm gone. I barely see this movie of ours. I barely see it because it tears me up. I only saw it probably one time. And I still felt like I was 10 years old when I watched it.
My Lord, my Lord.
So I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask my brother, I would like to call him my brother. But I have to call him my so-called brother because Mateo showed me that much love. When I was back at as I watched this movie, and I can't say it again no more unless I'm doing a Q&A. But that's like 20 years ahead of me. I ain't did a Q&A since I was born. But I'm gonna ask a question. I'm gonna ask a question to this man over here on the side of me. Cause he came up in Songbird. And right about now, he's not my Songbird brother. Cause he left me in here to die. With these ponies of wolves. So when you left out, when you got your life saved by your mama, why you didn't come get me, man? Why you didn't come get me? Why you didn't come get me, man? Okay. You threw my life away to the wolves. It felt like 20 years in a station house. You left me, man. You left me.
Okay.
You left me to die.
Corey,
you left me to die to become an animal as I am now. So why you left me? I done did life. You left me.
All right.
I ain't seen my brother in 12 years.
Corey.
I'm hurt.
Okay. Let's let.
I ain't seen him in 12 years.
Yeah.
Everybody eating off me. I ain't seen him in 12 years.
Corey.
I want to live again.
Corey. Corey. All right.
No, I'm not him.
Okay. Corey. All right.
Again.
Doctor, you said.
Everybody's living off me in my name. I'm being blocked from living. I need a new lawyer. Whoever signed my new lawyers, whoever signed my papers to being blocked and not getting paid for the rest of my life. You are fired. I signed the wrong paperwork. She had the contract on me for life.
Corey, we're going to look at the papers. We're going to look at them. All right, let's let Dr. Youssef. All right, let's let Dr. Youssef speak. Okay. Okay. All right. Peace and blessings. You can stand up yourself if you want to use this one.
You know, I don't think people understand the pain. I'm not upset about the emotion. We were 14, 15, and 16-year-old children.
Yeah.
Corey was my best friend. Everywhere we went together. Corey, the reason why he's saying what he's saying, it is not a lie. Corey and I were together when they came looking for me. And they looked at me and they said, "What's your name?" I was about this tall with a flat top. I had the triple fat goose on with the fur on the collar, if you know what I'm talking about. And I said, "I'm Yusuf Salam." They said, "You one of the guys we've been looking for." They looked at Corey and they said, "What's your name?" He said, "I'm Corey Wise." They said, "Your name is not on the list. But if you want to come downtown with your buddy, you'll be right back." What friends don't know at that young, tender age of childhood is the law of divide and conquer. What friends don't know at the tender age that we were children, was that he thought that he was going to go in and have my back and ride back home with me, back home to Schaumburg. Almost immediately, they separated us. He doesn't know that I was in the next room. And then Corey, see, if you know Corey, I don't know if you really know Corey. If you know Corey, Corey is cut from a different cloth. He is your friend, whether he knows the situation or doesn't know the situation. That's why he came with me. He would fight your battles. Corey Wise is a king. I didn't leave him. I'll never leave you. That's my brother. This is one of the reasons why, and I know the question is about what's worse than a lie, but this is one of the reasons why I say the Central Park jogger case is a love story between God and his people. It's a story of a criminal system of injustice placed on trial in order to produce a miracle in modern times. It's a story of how a people can be brought low only to rise because the truth can never stay buried. It's a story of a people buried alive and forgotten. The system forgot we were seeds. And instead of a social death, we emerged like the phoenix from the ashes. Because as they built that fire to consume us, they forgot the owner of the heat. You see, man plans, and God is the best of planners. This is why I always tell every audience I'm in front of that Corey is the miracle in the story. Can you imagine if Corey did not go with me? The truth would have never come out. And so the worst thing than a lie is when people make you believe that you're not even worthy, that you should be your ancestors' wildest nightmare. But we are our ancestors' wildest dream.
Yeah. Y'all give it up for Councilman Dr. Yusuf Salam and Corey Wise. And yeah, get them let's acknowledge y'all for what y'all are doing and became a testimony. Sisters and brothers, I'll say this as we get ready to relinquish the panel. Let's remember this now more than ever. The future of black people will not depend on how white people treat us. The future of black people will not depend on how white people support us. The future of black people will not depend on how white people invest in us. But the future of black people will depend on how black people treat black people. The future of black people will depend on how black people support black people. The future of black people will depend on how black people invest in black people. So I thank Reverend Al Sharpton and National Action Network for investing in black people, supporting black people, and treating black people with the humanity that God meant for all his children. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I remember I was 12 years old. I was a boy preacher in the Church of God in Christ. Bishop Shear knew my bishop, Bishop Washington. Bishop Washington, my mother was concerned I was getting into politics. They brought us to Reverend William Jones. His daughter's traveling with us. And Reverend Jones introduced me to Jesse Jackson. I became his youth director in New York at 13. I liked Reverend Jackson because he was a little hipper than the older preachers. He was 27, I was 13 by the time I became youth director. So he was like a father figure to me. When I got about 40, he said, quit calling me father, call me big brother. We went to the car center, and James Meeks and Jesse Jr. and I had dinner with him that night. And that's where he said to us, Al, me, Jesse Jr., y'all are my disciples. And we said disciples. And for years we joked each other. I'd come in the room and Junior say, here's disciple number one. But discipleship meant you carried for the vision. The next day, he took me on the ferry to Goree Island, Mrs. Jackson. On Goree Island, he showed me where the slave camps were. And I'll never forget, he said, Al, you see what that artifact is? I said, what's that? He said, they call it the door of no return. When you go through that door, you either made it to America to slavery, or you died in the Atlantic. The door of no return. But I talked to him about 3 years ago.
our president and founder, Reverend Al Sharpton.
Well, everybody take your seats. And one of the things that I'm glad about one of the things that I'm happy about in Nan's convention, as we just saw, you can do some healing among us that needs to be done. And I'm glad that we can heal and stand together. You must remember, no one ever volunteers to be a victim. And one of the reasons that National Action Network has been effective is that we will go and deal with people that others wouldn't touch. We don't look for elitists and people that got a clean background and all. Regular people are the ones that are victimized, and they bring whatever baggage they bring with them. All of us got something in us. Everybody in this room, something wrong with you. And if you think nothing is wrong with you, that's what's wrong with you. So the objective is to heal, and you can be a healer. I want to have 3 conversations that I'm going to ask questions that I want you to be attentive of. I think that sometimes we have speeches, sometimes I do questions, sometimes we go to the audience. We're going to do it all throughout the next 4 days. But before I bring out my first guest, I want, behind him will be the Congressman from Texas who stood up to Mr. Trump during the State of the Union, Congressman Al Green. And then, of course, young Congresswoman who's facing charges for standing up to ICE, Congresswoman McIver. I want to bring on, and many of our clergy and others have met and dealt with him and worked with him down through the years, our voter activists. And there are many people that are speculating what he may do in the future. But I want to talk about what is going on right now. Everybody talking about who may run for president. I want to first know what their vision is now and what they're doing now. So I've invited all of the people that could run if they decide, or maybe not, to tell me and you what they would do, and particularly in areas of interest to us. So the first one that said, I would love to come and just talk about what I'm doing and how I see where we are in this country. And I want to bring him first, since he was the one that respected us so. He is the governor of Pennsylvania, 48th governor of Pennsylvania, former attorney general in Pennsylvania, and he spent years on the front line fighting about the right to vote. May you welcome to the stage the Governor Josh Shapiro.
Thank you.
Governor, let me ask you, before I get into Pennsylvania, which you've been governor now, and some of the things you're doing there, how do you respond where we are as a country after the situation with Iran last night?
Well, first off, I think we have to acknowledge this was a war of choice by the President of the United States, a war I did not support, and a war where the President never came to the American people and said, this is our objective, or these are our objectives. And if you don't know why you went in, you sure as heck don't know when it's time to come out or how to get out. The President's going to do everything in his power today to spin us and tell us different tales and make up a whole bunch of stuff. But as I look at it, he destroyed a whole lot of innocent lives.
The nuclear program that he claimed was destroyed 7 or 8 months ago, he claimed he had to go back in and address. Unclear whether he did that. The Strait of Hormuz, which used to be open, which was a key reason why we could keep gas prices low, is now somehow being controlled by the Iranians. Not sure that's a good idea, certainly not. And then he claimed that he wanted regime change, and he went from a 90-year-old dictator to like a 60-year-old dictator. So I'm not sure how any of this is better for any of us. And what it is just the latest example of the kind of chaos Donald Trump brings to everything he touches. I view all of these issues through the prism of what is in the best interest of America's national security, and the manner in which the President of the United States has gone about this, I think, makes us less safe, not more safe.
How, as governor and your fellow governors, how have you found working with the Trump administration in Washington when it comes to services, when it comes to the interaction that governors have had with other presidents?
Look, I take an oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I serve 13 million people. And my job is to try and advance the ball down the field every day, make their lives a little bit better, their schools better, their safety better, more jobs and economic opportunity. If you go back to the Biden-Harris administration, on a bad day, it was neutral. And on most days, they were there to help us. On a normal day in the Trump administration, they are taking away people's rights. They are taking away billions of dollars of resources we depend on to educate our kids, to provide health care to people, especially in rural communities in my state. I have had to sue this president as governor 23 times. By the way, I've never lost, and we've recovered billions of dollars of funds that they've taken away. And by the way, we've also stood up for our values. When the Trump administration ripped down signs at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, telling our actual history, the story of slavery, trying to whitewash what happened in Philadelphia, we joined a lawsuit with our mayor in Philadelphia, Sherelle Parker. We won. Those signs are back up. So we will stand up for people's rights. We will bring back the dollars that are taken away from us. And I will never, ever, ever back down to a fight with this administration when it comes to standing up for the people of Pennsylvania.
That brings me to the climate in the country is polarized. And I think that it is a dangerous environment with that kind of polarization. You and your family suffered a violent situation. First of all, your family, they're fine, everybody?
Thank God, yes. Thank you.
And how did we get here, and how do we come out of this? Because when we see open hostilities, racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, all at a high pitch, and then you get a president that mocks Muslims on Easter Sunday on a social. I mean, this is unthinkable. I mean, Southern bigots in the 60s would be blushing at the stuff that he does.
So let me address this in two ways. First, if I may, just from a personal perspective, and second, about where our country is today. First, on a personal level, we're a year from the attack on my family. We had just concluded our communal Passover Seder. Right. Just gotten the kids up to sleep. And that's when a person broke into our home, threw Molotov cocktails all throughout the governor's residence, blew up part of the residence, and then was hunting me down with a metal hammer trying to kill me. That person's in jail now for up to 50 years. And I want to just say on a personal note, you know, I am a prayerful person. Faith has always been central in my life. And I'm not here to preach at anybody or tell you what to believe, but it has always been important to me. Until that moment, I never understood the power of prayer of others to heal me. When I had people reaching out of other faiths praying for me and my family, that actually connected me in a deeper way to my own faith. And there are people in this room who reached out. You reached out, others did. And I must say that that was healing for our family. We don't have the physical scars of political violence, but certainly it took an emotional toll on our family. And honestly, the hardest thing for me in that process was trying to be a father throughout. Not being a governor, but being a father to our 4 children. As it relates to how we got here, Rev, let me just say that part of the reason why tensions are so high, why we're seeing more political violence, we've always had, sadly, political violence in our system, but why we're seeing more of it, is because our leaders, in many cases, are failing us. I think the central role for a leader is to keep people safe. And one of the best ways to do that is to speak and act with moral clarity. When you attack people based on what they look like or where they come from, who they love, or who they pray to, everyone is less safe. You know, folks will say to me all the time, hey, Gov, you know, we're seeing a rise in anti-Semitism. And yes, we are empirically. You know, we're also seeing a rise in Islamophobia and racism and bigotry in all forms. And attacking one person because of what they look like or how they pray makes everyone less safe. The President of the United States has a responsibility to do better. When you tweet like that, not you, but what you referenced the other day, attacking Muslims, making fun of Islam, a beautiful religion, a wonderful faith, what you are really doing is saying those people are okay to attack. You are giving a pass to that. And when you give a pass to that, everyone is less safe. There's more chaos. There's more cruelty in our world. We should have a president of the United States, even if we disagree on healthcare policy or tax policy or whatever, we should at least at baseline have an honorable president of the United States. We do not have that right now.
You have a motto, GSD, get stuff done. We say GSD in Harlem, but we use the S a little differently. Yeah. But anyway.
In Philly, I use a different S word, too. That's right. We got a few people from Philly here, obviously. There you go.
So
everybody from Pennsylvania, stand up.
Oh, yeah, we have a lot of Pennsylvania in the house. All right, all right.
That's my church. How about that? Pastor Mitchell.
I mean, I don't want.
What, you don't think a Jew can go to a Baptist church? Come on, that's my pastor.
All right, if you say so, that's fine. Explain to me what GSD is, and let me come straight at it. What are you getting done in Pennsylvania?
Look, GSD is get stuff done. My whole reason for being in this business is that I believe government can be a force for good in people's lives. I was also raised to understand that I have a responsibility to others. My mom, a Philadelphia school teacher, my dad, the local pediatrician, the local baby doc. And my faith teaches me to serve. Part of my scripture teaches me that no one is required to complete the task, but neither are we free to refrain from it. And I think in many ways that's universal. It means each of us has a responsibility to get off the sidelines, get in the game, and to do our part. So to me, government has to show tangible difference making in people's lives. Whether I'm in a rural community or I'm in Center City, Philly, or downtown Pittsburgh, folks kind of want the same 4 things, Rev. They want a good school for their kids and grandkids. They want a safe street for that kid to walk down. They want economic opportunity, which means a job in the neighborhood that they want to live in and a neighborhood they can afford to live in. And then fourth and finally, they may not articulate it this way, but they just want their freedoms and their rights protected. They don't want government reaching in and telling them what books their kids are allowed to read or how they are allowed to vote or whether, RFK is going to make healthcare decisions for their kids. I want to make healthcare decisions for my kids. And so that GSD mentality is how we approach things. It's why we completely changed the way we fund our public schools, not only increase funding by 30%, but for the first time ever, we drive those dollars out to schools that have been historically disadvantaged. It's a reason why, yes, we've invested in hiring 2,000 more police officers in Pennsylvania, but also $886 million in church groups and civic groups and other organizations working on violence prevention. And violent crime is down 13%. Fatal gun violence is down 43% in Pennsylvania. It's why we're investing in creating jobs. We have the only growing economy in the northeastern part of the United States, created more jobs than all but 2 states in the country. And I'm particularly proud that the jobs we're creating have been in large measure driven by our investments in historically disadvantaged businesses. We have increased our state procurement in Black-owned businesses by 40% since I took office. That's helping drive our economy. And at the end of the day, we're also treating everyone with respect. We believe everyone deserves opportunity. The federal government is saying certain people don't count. We're putting everybody at the table and lifting up everybody and giving more people an opportunity to succeed. That's what GSD is, the freedom to chart your own course and the opportunity to succeed.
Now, let me push you on that, because that's part of what National Action Network is about. When you talk about small businesses, clearly we need a lot of social programming, but we also need the ability to be able to do business. Our people in the financial industries, investment, people in private business. How are you working, you alluded to it, but give me a little detail on how you're working with small businesses and even larger businesses that have been excluded. I don't think we're asking for a favor, we're asking to stop the disfavor.
It actually goes back to my campaign for governor. It was a priority to make sure that the entity with the most powerful purchasing power in Pennsylvania, the state government, did a better job of giving more people opportunities. It came up when I was interviewing folks to be my lieutenant governor. And I'm proud of the fact that I chose Austin Davis, who was a young state representative at the time and is now our Commonwealth's first Black lieutenant governor. And by the way, he always tells me the youngest lieutenant governor in the country. He always rubs that in my face. But we both shared that priority. And then when it was time to govern, the first thing we did was go out to our small businesses, our small diverse businesses, and say, hey, how come you're not competing for this contract or that procurement? And you know what they'd say very honestly? We didn't even know it was happening. And so you would have, historically, government would say, well, we're going to set aside this many contracts for these small diverse businesses. And then they'd never bid on the work. We decided to look at it a different way. First, I put Austin in charge of the committee that was doing this work, together with the head of our Department of General Services, a wonderful Black man, a veteran, someone who has served this country honorably, a gentleman named Reggie McNeil. And we said, we're not going to create these arbitrary numbers, but what we're going to do is reach out to small diverse businesses, sign them up to be certified in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and then encourage them to bid. Because my view is the more bids you get, the better deal you get for the taxpayers of Pennsylvania and the more opportunity you give to others. So get this, we've signed up 600 new small businesses to be certified in Pennsylvania. That's a lot. 443 of them are small diverse businesses. They're competing for contracts. They are winning. And by the way, a 40% increase in small diverse Black-owned businesses getting work in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's because we've been focused on it, not because we set some arbitrary number or we created some arbitrary metric. We're just saying we're going to reach out to you. We're going to encourage you to compete. And when you compete, we all win. You get to hire more people in your community. We get a better product for the taxpayers of Pennsylvania, and we're creating more opportunity across the board. It's working, what we're doing in Pennsylvania. We're creating more opportunity. We're going to keep at it.
We've seen one of the linchpins of President Trump's second term is he came in blazing about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this organization certainly has been dealing with that, reparations, a lot of issues on how you make up the gap. I mean, this wasn't just some gap that was by nature. It was structural, legal gap that put certain people behind, blacks, women, Asians, but blacks from days of slavery on to now, the disparity. If you could address the issue, whether it's called DEI or whatever, but of dealing with making sure that locked out communities are able to be part of the process and try to equalize the disadvantages, what would that be?
I refuse to let any Pennsylvanian be scapegoated because of what they look like or how they worship or where they come from. I refuse to allow that to happen. We believe diversity is our strength in the Commonwealth. We continue to have an Office of Diversity and Equity and Inclusion. When other states have shuttered them, we continue to do that work. And it's apparent in all of the policies, whether it's driving out billions of dollars to school districts that have historically been left behind, whether it's creating a new a new historically disadvantaged business fund seeded with $60 million to invest in those historically disadvantaged businesses, whether it's trying to right some of the injustices in our criminal justice system by passing sweeping probation reform, by doing double the number of pardons and commutations that my predecessor did 3 years into my term to give people second chances, by making sure that indigent defense is now funded at the state level to ensure that there is more equity and opportunity there, to making sure that the voices I hear when I'm sitting around the table trying to figure out, do we go this way or that way on a particular issue, are diverse voices, and voices that have different lived experiences than me and different perspectives than me. And so it's seeding all of those decisions with those elements of diversity that are critically important to ending up with a better outcome for the people of Pennsylvania. Look, Rev, when I'm sitting behind my desk, I'm looking up at the portraits of those who came before me. The first guy to lead Pennsylvania back in 1682 was a guy named William Penn. He arrived aboard a ship called Welcome on what is now the banks of Chester, Pennsylvania. And he wanted to establish a place that would be, his words, not mine, a model to the nations, a place that would be welcoming for people of all faiths, of all different walks of life. And now, 300 plus years later, it's my responsibility to carry that forward. Now, I want to be clear about something. William Penn never imagined a guy who worships like me serving as governor. And he probably never imagined me sitting in a room full of folks who look like you being integral parts of our politics. I get that. But I do think what he set in motion, I have a responsibility to carry forward, to build a place that will be welcoming for all. What the President of the United States doesn't understand is when you try to shut certain people out, you make us all less safe, you make the American economy less competitive, and I think you make America less of a beacon of freedom and hope and opportunity to the world. And all three of those things are dangerous, and that's why we've got to reverse what this president is doing.
You were Attorney General, so you know criminal justice well. You also know some of the problems we've had in criminal justice. This organization has dealt, we just had victims on. What do you see as ways that we need to deal with the accountability of law enforcement, but at the same time keep crime going down, like you talked about in Pennsylvania? Because I think people misconstrue that many of us that are questioning certain police tactics, that we're anti-police. No, we're anti-police brutality. So how do you see the policy that could really serve both? Because we don't want high crime. We don't want police not to police, because the high crime areas are in our areas. But at the same time, we don't want to have to run from the cops and the robbers.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a great point. I think that's a great point. And I think it's a nuance that is lost if you're just scrolling through Twitter or you're just watching some news coverage. I've spent a lot of years listening not to some of that news coverage or watching Twitter, but actually sitting in the community, listening. And what folks tell me there is exactly what you just said, maybe not as artfully as you said it, but they want police in their community. They want constitutional policing in their community. They want police who look like the community, who understand the responsibility of getting out of their patrol car, walking the beat, and knowing the names of the children in the community. I've worked incredibly hard as Attorney General and as Governor to build that trust. We spent a lot of time, and I watched your commentary on NBC and elsewhere about what we saw playing out in Minnesota with ICE. One of the things that I spoke about as it relates to what they were doing, law enforcement was doing in Minnesota, is they were eviscerating the number one tool law enforcement has to keep a community safe. And that number one tool is not a gun, it's not a badge, it's not a radio or a patrol car, it's trust. Law enforcement has a responsibility to earn that trust. And when they do, it's the most powerful tool to be able to work with the community, as we've done in Pennsylvania, to reduce crime. At the same time, if a law enforcement official does something wrong, they got to be held to account. And we've changed our laws in Pennsylvania to have different review commissions and other steps needed to hold police accountable. And when you talk to police chiefs who are responsible, they also want to be held accountable. They want more training. They want to make sure that there's more opportunities to build that trust with the community. And I've always prided myself on being a bridge between a community that wants to be safe and also free, and with law enforcement who want to go out and do a dangerous job every day, get home to their families, and do it in a way that models exemplary behavior. And when those things don't work, we've got to make sure that there's accountability. And we've done that in Pennsylvania.
I know we're out of time, but let me ask you this. What do you think that the midterm elections that we're looking at this year, what do you think that the Democratic Party has to do better to appeal to Americans to come out and turn this country away from the kind of presidency that we're dealing with now? At least if the midterms go Democrats' way, they have a stopgate with the House if they get it. What should the Democrats be doing more?
So I woke up this morning in Pennsylvania. In a few hours, I'll be back there. Pennsylvania is the ultimate swing state, the swingiest of all swing states, right? The toughest state to win in, and a heck of a tough state to govern in. We've got a divided congressional delegation. I've got a state Senate led by Republicans by 2 seats, and a state House led by Democrats by 1 seat. One of the only governors in the country with a divided legislature. In these midterms, we've got 4 competitive U.S. congressional races that I'm going all in on so we can make Hakeem Jeffries the Speaker of the House. And by the way, for those of you in Pennsylvania, I'm running for re-election as governor this year. And I think what we need, not just in competitive swing states, but all across America, Rev, we need a national referendum on Donald Trump and on what is happening in Washington, D.C. If you don't like what you see on TV, if you are upset and angered, rightfully so, by the chaos and the cruelty and the corruption that we see every day, well, you got to get out and vote. And even in a state that is a foregone conclusion on how their politics are, they're overwhelmingly Democrat or overwhelmingly Republican, imagine how different it is if instead of 50 or 60% of the public coming out to vote, 90% come out and send a message and shock the nation about some of these races I believe we are poised to win. We need a national referendum. To the other part of your question, as it relates to Democrats, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to run on that GSD agenda. I'm going to run on how we've made people's lives better, their schools, their safety, their economic opportunity, how we've defended our freedom, and how we've defended all people in our state and still managed to create more opportunity, showing that our diversity is a strength, not a weakness, as Donald Trump thinks. I believe that that GSD approach, showing people that government can make their lives a little bit better, whether they're going down to the DMV or whether they're trying to get their kid the healthcare services that they need. A byproduct of making government work is that that person walks away with their problem solved and maybe just a little less cynical, a little bit more hopeful. And with a little bit more hope in our system, Rev, I don't think there's anything that can hold us back. And we can build a real coalition that's not only going to win in 2026, but it's going to give us the momentum to carry us forward as a nation.
Let me, I know we've got to go, but just between you and I, let's forget about 2,000 people.
I can't forget about the folks from Pennsylvania.
All right, well, just remember them, but just me and you talking.
Just you and me.
Yeah. You run a re-election, and if you're reelected, are you considering running for president in 2028?
Just you and me.
Just me and you. Just between us.
Look, we have, I think, some incredibly talented folks in the Democratic Party. And what I think we are poised to do if we have this national referendum in the midterms, and if people show up in record numbers, we have an opportunity to have a real debate within our party about what we stand for, about what our affirmative vision is, which can't just be about banging Donald Trump every day. It has to be about what we are going to do to make people's lives better. And I think that that is a debate that our party hasn't had for a good long while. And that debate is not only going to help the Democratic Party, I think it's going to be healthy for this country. And what I can tell you for sure is that I want to be a part of that debate. Bring the common sense sensibility of what we do in Pennsylvania to that conversation. As to who's a candidate at the end of the day, that's for another day. But right now, what is critically important is that we have this national referendum in the midterms, and then we have an honest conversation as a party and as a country about what direction we want to go. Donald Trump has torched our norms, has dismantled most of the federal government, has created chaos every day. What we need to do is not rebuild what was broken down, but build something better. And the way you do that is through calm, through strength, through real dialogue, even with people you don't agree with on every issue, and doing what we do in Pennsylvania every day, which is to find common ground and a path forward. And I'll be a part of that conversation.
Let me say this. In 2020, we challenged the Democratic candidates to debate in Harlem. For the first time, I got them to debate at the Apollo Theater, and they had me ask the first question because I convened it. Then in 2004, I ran. In 2008, we had all the candidates here, Obama and so this has been a quarter of a century of bringing people forward. What I just heard you say, and maybe I didn't get it right, is that you think that you want to be possibly part of our National Action Network 2028 Democratic presidential debate.
I don't know that I said that.
But you didn't deny it either.
I don't know that I said that. Here's what I will say.
You didn't deny it.
I'm not showing up in any room where anybody's wearing a Knicks jersey, okay? So I know I just lost half the room, but next time I show up, I'll be in my Sixers hoodie, and we'll have a conversation.
All right, Governor Josh Shapiro, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Give him a hand. All right, keep your seats. We'll be back in 2 minutes with Congressman Al Green from Texas.
is extremely important about the funding. But I also want to add how they're changing what can be taught. You have states outright saying you can't teach Black history and you can't teach certain other histories and the curriculum. You have this administration that is literally taking out exhibits from the Smithsonian. So we have not only an education problem in terms of resources, we have an education problem in terms of curriculum and what people are being taught. So I have one grandchild, 6-year-old. When he gets to high school, it may be just against the law for him to learn about certain parts of American history, which includes Blacks. We don't want to talk about slavery. We want to talk about the good side of America. Well, what does that mean? That's not history. Everything was not good. And I think that that is the threat that we've got to fight, which is why we've got to fight with the courts and the streets, because they're literally changing the textbooks as we go. As they do that, they change the opportunity, because then the fight against affirmative action is not having access to these institutions and telling these institutions, this whole fight around DEI, which they did, started in Harlem with a Black woman president. Started with them saying you can't teach diversity in an Ivy League school like Harlem. It didn't start in Little Rock at the high school. This fight, this time, was Harvard. And they went from there on. And I think that we've got to have the same resistance. If they could fight in the 50s, at ACP, the Defense Fund together and deal with the question from Little Rock in terms of desegregation, then we that are far more educated, far more economically secure personally, have no excuse in the age of what they did in Harvard not to be standing up back in the Senate.
All right. There have been, in American history, we have probably more now, clearly more now, Blacks in the U.S. Congress than we ever had. What a lot of us don't realize is that we've not been in Congress nearly as long as other communities. 1940, William Dawson was the first elected out of Chicago, then Adam Clayton Powell from here. And we've had those that have been in Congress and used it different ways. My first hero as a kid was Adam Clayton Powell. Adam Clayton Powell knew how to get legislation through, but he also stood up and defiantly represented the interests of our community. And there have been some that have followed in that tradition, and then there's been some that have played being inside and doing it in that way. A man that I felt has mastered what I admired in Adam Powell has been one that would legislate and get stuff done for his district and therefore the country, but one that would agitate and say what needed to be said when it needed to be said. And that is the congressman from Houston, Texas, Congressman Al Green. Well, you got one or two fans here, see.
It's an honor to be with you, Reverend, and it's always an honor to be with your constituency. And thank you so much for being here today, and let's stay together, as another Al Green was saying.
You know, earlier in your political career, people would say, Al Green, I thought they was talking about the singer. Now they see Al Green at his church and they say, oh, I thought you was talking about Congressman Al Green.
Well, Reverend, for the good times.
Oh.
Well, Reverend, thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to the Q&A, but I'd like to, if I may, just say that your presence has made a great difference in the lives of many people. And I don't know that we'll ever be able to thank you enough, but I would just ask that since I'm here today, and I would like to thank you, would you join me in thanking the Reverend for all that he's done? Some of you might want to give him a real big New York expression of appreciation for what he does and continues to do. Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you. Love you back. Thank you very much. Let me, I want, before we get into policy, and I do want to get into policy, someone sent me a question saying that I was probably not going to ask you, so I'm going to ask you. That's the best way to get me to ask a question. As you sat in the well that day, that evening, and watched President Trump make, history says, the longest or next to the longest speech made at State of the Union, and it was done in the height of the ICE killings in Houston, killing of DEI and all. What was going through your mind that made you take the stand you made, knowing you were going to be denounced, because you'd been censored or attempted to be censored the last time, knowing there was going to be punishment, knowing you might be bodily removed, what you were, but what made you stand up and do what you had to do? I mean, you'd already made a national reputation. You didn't need to do anything. You were going to be on the talk shows anyway. What was going through Al Green's mind?
Well, Reverend, thank you for the question. The first time was spontaneity. He was talking about how he was going to use his mandate. And of course, I said, you don't have a mandate to cut Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. But the second time was not with spontaneity, it was with intentionality. I went there the second time to confront the president. And I wanted to confront the president. I wanted him to know that he demeaned all people of color when he decided that he would portray a former president of the United States of America and a former first lady as apes. So I went there to confront him. And Reverend, I have my confrontation here. May I just display it? Yeah.
That's your what?
This is what I confronted the president with. And some of you have seen this, but it was important for him to know that black people are not apes. So I wanted to show this to him, and I actually did. And then my colleagues became very aggressive, and they decided that this was inappropriate as they saw the world. And so I continued with it, and of course I was thrown out again. I can't seem to stay through an entire State of the Union. But I'm gonna work on it, okay?
You're working on it, right? Let me ask you this. Not only is his depiction of President and Mrs. Barack Obama as apes, but his policies. Explain what his policies have done to the black community, because I think that we heard a lot of people saying that you know, he's not that bad for blacks, and some people talking about what do we have to lose. Explain as a congressman, senior member of Congress, specifically the impact that we've had in these less than 2 years already under Trump 2.
Thank you, Reverend. Let me start with this. We had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and we did not do what we should have done, which was pass George Floyd Justice and Policing, pass John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Those were two things that we should have passed, but we did not. And when we did not do these things, I think we left the door open for him to then come back into office. I think that they would have made a difference had we passed those two things. And his coming back to office brought with him the immediate notion that diversity, equity, and inclusion was somehow invidious discrimination against people who were Anglos. And he has gone out of his way, Reverend, to destroy the whole concept of inclusion. And quite frankly, he started with a collision between an airplane and a helicopter, and immediately said this was DEI without any investigation. So he has put himself in a position with the aid of many people in this country such that he can now demean us in ways that we should not be demeaned, obviously, but demean us and do it such that it is almost normalized now. There is a normalization of invidious discrimination against people of color. He promoted this. He promulgates this. And when he does this, it then spills over into the workplace. There are people who have reported to me that the atmosphere at their job has changed immensely, that people are not as respectful as they used to be, that people are saying things that they shouldn't say. He has made it somewhat difficult for us to have normal lives in this country. And he's going beyond that now. He seems to believe that for whatever reasons, he can roll back the hands of time. There seems to be this effort, Reverend, to push us back to a time when we were no longer persons who were to be respected as human beings, but to be respected as servants. We are not here to serve him. We are here to serve each other, but we have to make it clear that we will not allow the hands of time to be rolled back. We're going to stand our ground. We're going to fight. We're going to protest. We will litigate when we have to, negotiate when allowed to, but never give up the right to protest, because we are not going back.
What are the critical legislative agendas that you want to see as the priority in this midterm election? Because too often we've reduced politics now to personality and who looks a certain way, or who's older or younger, or who's this or that. What are the priorities that you see that we ought to policy-wise drive voters out in this midterm election?
I'm going to start with the most important thing first. Without question, reservation, or hesitation, this is the most important. In this country, people of color, especially black people, have difficulty acquiring bootstraps. Bootstraps are found in banks. We have difficulty acquiring the capitalization necessary to start businesses, to get homes, borrowing money. I served as the chairperson of Oversight and Investigations for the Financial Services Subcommittee. And as such, we had the big banks to come in, the big insurance companies. And we found that invidious discrimination exists in lending as it relates to black people. How do you know? Well, you do something called testing. You send out 3 people with an African American who is more qualified than the others. And if that person does not get a loan, then we know that there's a problem. But many times the African American would have to pay more in points, have terms that were more onerous, and get less money. Now, these are things that we can validate. Well, we have legislation to deal with that under the leadership of the Honorable Maxine Waters, who is the chairperson. And by the way, will be the chairperson again when we take back the House. Under her leadership, we had a piece of legislation, H.R. 166, fair lending for all. Currently, if you defraud the bank, you can go to prison and you can be fined up to $1 million. But if the bank defrauds you, denies you a loan that you're entitled to, there's not a similar remedy. Well, we made it a crime to discriminate in lending. A crime to discriminate in lending. And it passed the House of Representatives. But it didn't make headlines because for whatever reasons, we find ourselves in a society where that kind of legislation is not as appealing to some people as it should be. But here's my promise. When I go back, if we have the House, I promise you, we're going to bring H.R. 166 to the floor because much of what is wrong in Black America has to do more with a lack of money than a lot of the other things that we have to face. Just can't get the money that other people get. That's one. Now, that's the most important in my opinion, but there are some other things. Under the leadership of the Honorable Maxine Waters, we have a piece of legislation for $150 billion to help subsidize the purchasing of a home for first-time home buyers, first-generation home buyers, to help them have a home. And we also understand that for this to happen, there are people who are paying more in rent than they would pay in a mortgage if they just could get into the home. Well, this will give them that down payment that helps them to get to the point that they can have that monthly mortgage and they can have a place to call home. I promise you, we're going to bring that legislation to the floor. The Honorable Maxine Waters is also concerned about new homes, affordable homes. She has a piece of legislation with $100 billion that is going to help us with people who need to buy a home by building more homes. We need to have more affordable homes. So she has legislation for this. And finally, this has to do with something that I call the conscious agenda. I believe that our ancestors have not been properly respected. For more than 240 years, people of African ancestry planted the seeds, harvested the crops, fed the nation, had a hand in building the White House, a hand in building the Capitol. They are the economic foundational mothers and fathers of this country, and they must be respected. And if in 1956 we could give Confederate soldiers a Congressional Gold Medal, then people of African ancestry who were enslaved for more than 240 years, they deserve a Congressional Gold Medal too. They must be respected. But that's not enough. We have to respect them. This is why we have passed legislation in the House of Representatives with the aid and assistance of the Honorable Steny Hoyer. We passed legislation to have a Slavery Remembrance Day. We currently have a 9/11 Remembrance Day in this country. We have a Holocaust Remembrance Day, and we should have these. Well, we should also have a Slavery Remembrance Day, so we can commemorate the lives of the people on whose backs this country was built. If you're in this country, regardless as to how you got here or why you're here, you're standing on the backs of 240 years of free labor, and they have to be respected. Slavery Remembrance Day. But Reverend, for me, that's not enough. We also have legislation for what we call a Department of Reconciliation. We have to reconcile our differences. And this goes beyond African Americans, the Trail of Tears, what happened to the Japanese internments. We've got to reconcile our differences. So we need a Secretary of Reconciliation, just as we have a Secretary of Education, a Secretary of Labor. We need a Secretary of Reconciliation who will report directly to a president, not this president, directly to a president. And the job would be to reconcile our differences, and that reconciliation for me, I say this with no shame, no embarrassment. I am unapologetically Black, and I say this, that would include reparations. Reparations for the 240 years of free labor that people still benefit today from, and that we were locked out of opportunities along the way while they were benefiting. So I believe in reparations. And Reverend, there are some people who don't want reparations, but here's my solution to that. I'll take their share.
Well, this organization is on record. In fact, I just spoke at the UN around that. We're going to definitely stay on the reparations. But let me on that particular point, the question of DEI, where the president has really in many ways forced a lot of the private sector that if you want to make a merger, you have to get rid of DEI, or we're going to block your mergers, or if you want to continue federal funds, and even colleges and universities. We have a National Action Network New York chapter has been marching over a year now on Bill Ackman, who was one of the architects of ending it in Harvard. Is there legislation that you would like to see, if the Democrats you referred to, if the Democrats take the House back, that could make law that would protect diversity, equity, and inclusion? Because we are not saying we need it because we're less than able. We're saying it that we've been barred from just having a fair, even playing field.
That's right.
And how do we catch up? You know, it's almost like somebody starts a 100-yard dash and you spot somebody 40 yards, me back here, 40 back, and then say go, and then you wonder why I can't catch up, because you cheated in the first place. And how do we close that gap? Is there a legislative way that you'd like to see Democrats do?
Well, Reverend, diversity, equity, and inclusion was not unconstitutional.
Right.
We just had a president who decided that he would eviscerate it, and he went about the business of doing it not only, as you have articulated, but also in institutions of higher education. Took on institutions and literally demanded they eliminate all of these departments that were in any way associated with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the policies as well. I think that we have to have something that separated Dr. King from all of the great orators of his time, that separated him from the intellectuals of his time, and that thing was courage. We have to have the courage to say that we will reinstate what he eviscerated, and do it with no shame. I believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion should be there, not to guarantee us anything, but to at least let us be at the table, at least be considered. Right now, we don't get any consideration. And if you probably have noticed that there's this movement afoot now in the National Football League to take away the notion that you just have a person of color in the pool of candidates. You don't have to select them. Well, I think that we go back. And the Honorable Joyce Beatty is a person who was championing that DEI. So I want to give her full credit along with the Honorable Maxine Waters. I think we go back to that, but I think we can go beyond that. I believe, Reverend, that and I believe this will happen, you will have one from your state as a Speaker of the House of Representatives. And when he becomes Speaker of the House, he's a bold brother. I believe that we can go so far as to decide that we will pass the legislation that I talked about, H.R. 166, deal with the DEI question, but also, Reverend, make it very clear to people that we have these obligations because when the land was free, all you had to do was squat and you could have it. When the people came back from the war and there was a GI Bill, all you had to do was be a GI and you could get loans, and we didn't get those loans as readily as other people. I think we have to decide that we are going to move forward on the reparations question. I don't think this is something that we should put off to some distant point in time when we think we'll have the best opportunity. The best opportunity is when we have 218 votes in the House of Representatives. And let's move forward with reparations. Let's move forward with it.
Absolutely. And I might add that he had advocated this for some time. He had me speak at the caucus weekend one year about that. He had a whole committee on that. And like I said, we just did, Ben Crump and I just spoke to the UN on this. Let me bring you to another issue. Our voting rights.
Yes.
We are sitting at a time that we do not know where the Supreme Court may rule on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court in the past has already weakened Section 7 and 8. And I remember sitting in the courtroom in the hearing in the Supreme Court. I was sitting there, John Lewis, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and I all together. And John Lewis and Jesse gone now. And here we're sitting with the possibility that they will take out the last of the Voting Rights Act in our generation. That's why a lot of this bickering and arguing with each other, they're dismantling everything that the generation ahead of us got us, and we fight each other rather than fighting those that are disenfranchised at all. They've also, in the interim of dealing with the Supreme Court, started the redistricting, and the Selma of that, the Selma of today was Texas. They drew lines to pit blacks against blacks to dissipate the strength and seniority of the black community and to weaken us. Explain to us, as one whose district was affected by that, and who is also sees the looming Section 2 debate, the problem, and then as you see a solution, what do we do around the question of voting redistricting and the Voting Rights Act?
Well, thank you, Reverend. You're eminently correct about the evisceration of the Voting Rights Act. There's a case in Louisiana before the Supreme Court, and if they rule as people are thinking that they'll rule, we're likely to lose Section 2, which means then that literally a person would have to confess to discriminating before you could have a conviction or judgment against them. I know a thing or two about redistricting in Texas. I do. If there is a person that has had the full sting of it, I'm that person. The president informed the governor of the state of Texas and the attorney general that he wanted 5 seats from Texas to go over to the Republican side from the Democratic side. That means eliminate 5 Democratic seats and generate 5 Republican seats. Well, in doing that, in Houston, they decided that they would take the 9th Congressional District, which is the district that I currently represent, and the 18th Congressional District, which is the one that Jackson Lee represented and Sylvester Turner, Mayor Turner, represented, and they would combine them. So 2/3 of the 9th became the 18th, and 1/3 of the old 18th became the new 18th. And as a result, I find myself in an election with a person who is now a member of Congress from the old 18th Congressional District. Very, very sinister behavior on behalf of the governor and the president of the United States of America. They did this. But let me just retreat for a moment and say this. This is not anything new for Texas, Reverend. Texas is a state where they had white primaries. Only white people could vote in the primaries. And there was a doctor in Houston, his name was Lonnie Smith. He challenged the white primaries, took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, Texas, you cannot have all white primaries. Texas said, okay, we're not gonna have all white primaries. Texas decided to have all white pre-primaries. Texas has has a history of this level of invidious discrimination. So it's not anything new, but it is something that is causing us to lose our voting strength, because rather than have 2 African Americans in Houston now, we will only have 1, They have eliminated one seat completely. And we find ourselves in this election to solve this. But here to answer your question about what do we do. Reverend, you said earlier that if you want to get you to do something, say that you can't do it or won't do it. People have to realize this. Look, we're not going to change these voting rights laws between now and the election. It's not going to happen. I think that the mere fact that people are trying to prevent us from getting to the polls and voting, that ought to be reason enough for us to fight our way to the polls and vote. You know, our foreparents, they rode wagons to get to the polls. They walked to get to the polls. I mean, if they had to, they would crawl to get to the polls. We owe it to them to vote in spite of all of these obstacles. We cannot let them deny us the opportunity to elect people that will make a difference because they have thrown up the roadblocks. We know they're there. Let's start getting those passports. Let's start getting those driver's licenses. Let's start getting all those things so that we can vote in numbers unlike we've ever voted in before and take back the House of Representatives, take back the Senate, take back the presidency next time out, and for me, impeach Donald John Trump. For me, that's for me. I don't speak for anybody else, but I'm going to bring articles of impeachment against him. I promise you, we cannot allow his transgressions to go unnoticed. It is almost like acquiescing to it when you see it and you do nothing about it. You normalize this behavior. Impeachment is a means by which we deny a person the opportunity to normalize without the House of Representatives weighing in. I don't ask people to do what I do. You do what you can do. But I'm going to do what I must. I will not sit by and watch him eviscerate the Constitution without putting up a fight.
Listen, we're out of time, but I need to ask you. You've been in the Congress, you've been in public service all of your life. And to our young people, we brought students in from our chapters. What would you advise someone that is beginning to get involved in public service, whether they're going to run for office, whether they're going to be an activist? What would advice you give them along the way? One of the things that I think a lot about is growing up in the movement, as I did. It just started making sense in later years with Reverend Jackson, and Reverend Jones would tell me when I was a teenager and thought I knew it all. And I was youth director of Bread Basket, but I thought I was smarter than them. But then you hit certain traps and certain walls, and you say, oh, this is what Jesse was talking about. And what advice would you give to some of them, young or old? Because some people are older when they decide to get in the movement. You're never too old to get in. There is no age limit in reforming and recovering from being an Uncle Tom. There's no age limit. You can get healed at any age. So what advice would you give them?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that there's no age limit because, Reverend, I have celebrated my 19th birthday 4 times. And I'm 2 years into my 5th 19th. But here's my advice to anyone who wants to be a public servant. Lincoln expressed it best. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. And if you're to have this, I think you have to be among the people. Get involved in organizations that are about helping people. Get involved with the NAACP. Get involved with the Urban League. Get involved with the National Action Network. Get to know what the issues are to the extent that when somebody says, let's take a poll, you can say, I've been taking that poll every day. I have never taken a poll in my life. I don't need a poll because I'm at the Civic Club meeting. I don't need a poll because I still go out and shop in the stores where people are who are going to come up to me and tell me about how Aunt Sadie didn't get her water bill paid, and now they're trying to shut off the water. I'm out there, and I think that makes the difference when you're among people. You love them, and they love you. But if you try to do this, you get your degree from some great institution, and then you just show up one day and decide that you want to be a congressman. Well, people are kind of suspect of that. And I don't blame them. I'm suspect of that. I don't want to know that you served in a law firm downtown for 5 years and you've made a lot of money. I want to know, where were you when we had a pothole that had to be repaired? Where were you when we had storm sewage that was overflowing? And where were you when the things that impact people every day needed some assistance? And if you can say, I was there with the NAACP, I was there with the National Action Network or the Urban League, that gives you kudos from me. So I would invite people to just get involved in the community and do this if you can. I say this to all young people in terms of just life itself. Try not to make the